Let's talk about Big Mouth. So this Netflix cartoon has been getting a lot of praise from critics and a lot of criticism from, I guess, casual cartoon viewers. And the main thing that the general audience has been complaining about is the look of the show. That with every adult cartoon, it has to look as ugly as possible. And while I think the cartoon style is definitely not the greatest, I don't think that's the main thing you should focus on when watching this cartoon. The other thing people have been saying is the fact that these are kids talking about puberty, though all of the voices on the show are voiced by adult actors. And honestly, I think a show about puberty can be relatable to everybody because everybody goes through it. Because there are many different aspects to it other than just the sexual aspect. Which unfortunately, this show doesn't really go into anything that's non-sexual about puberty. Most of it is sexual. And that just makes it feel like a missed opportunity for other things to talk about when discussing puberty. I know this is an adult comedy show, so sex jokes are going to be plenty here. But most of the time, it feels like the show is just an excuse to make dirty jokes. That's not to say that I didn't laugh at any of them. There's some I actually laughed at. The main kids in the show are all right as characters, but they're not really that memorable. And Nick Kroll has a ton of voices in the show, and you can tell when he's voicing somebody because it's always that sort of Nick Kroll-y voice. And sometimes the way that he does a voice just isn't that funny. This show is actually credited by being created by 4 different people, and that's just kind of strange to me that this show is the brainchild between 4 different people. It's a bit of a too many cooks situation, because after the first few episodes, it's alright, but then it starts getting into very weird territory. One of the main things about this show is that there's a hormone monster which one of the kids going through puberty can see, though the rules aren't really set in stone of what he can do and who can see him. And there's an episode later in the season where there's a dream sequence and we don't even know if it actually happened or not, and it's very hard to tell whether the hormone monster actually influences the world or not. Like physically, not just the kids going through puberty, but like the hormone monster physically changing things around in the real world. There's also a lot of meta humor in this. They mention Netflix a few times, as well as acknowledging the viewer a couple of times. The entire show itself isn't really that bad, but it's not as good as critics have been praising it. Though you gotta remember that the way people review TV is very different from how people review movies. For some reason, TV seems to get off easier than movies do. So yeah, Big Mouth isn't really the funniest thing in the world, and it's not up there with other adult animation like BoJack. But I wouldn't put it as like bottom of the barrel status. There are still a few laughs I had while watching it. And actually, one of the characters is voiced by Richard Kind, and I kept thinking of Bing Bong as that character, and that made me laugh. So if you have seen Big Mouth, tell me down in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, by now we're getting a bit used to winter. We're like soldiers in the middle of a campaign, growing hardened to discomfort and better able to